Listen to me carefully. Success is not a miracle, it's a method. It's not something reserved for the chosen few. It's the result of chosen actions. Every single day you are either moving closer to your destiny or drifting toward your defeat. And the deciding factor, your habits. When you wake up in the morning, before your feet even touch the floor, your words should already be working. What you say when you rise sets the tone for your entire day. The average person wakes up and reacts to life, but champions wake up and create life with their declarations. The moment your eyes open, your mouth should open with authority. Speak to your future like it's already in motion, because the power of life and death isn't in your hustle, it's in your tongue. Most people underestimate the power of words because they've been trained to think words are just sounds. But words are spiritual contracts. Every time you say, I can't, you sign an agreement with limitation. Every time you say, I'm tired, you strengthen the chains holding your energy hostage. Every time you say, this is hard, you program your mind to avoid the challenge rather than master it. Words aren't harmless, they're architects. They are literally designing the blueprint of your reality, sentence by sentence. You've been given the divine ability to call things that do not exist as though they already do. That's not fantasy, that's faith in action. When you speak what you expect, not just what you experience, your language becomes a tool of transformation. It doesn't matter how broke, how stuck, or how unsure you feel. When you speak prosperity, freedom, confidence, and clarity, you begin to align with the frequency of success. You cannot attract what you constantly contradict. It's not enough to just think positive. Thoughts are seeds, but words are water. You must vocalize the vision. Don't just think about wealth, speak wealth. Don't just imagine strength, declare it. When your own voice hears your affirmations, it activates something powerful inside of you. And what you repeat with conviction eventually becomes your internal default. The most powerful voice in your life is your own. And yet most people only use it to complain or criticize. No more. Start your day by saying things like, I am the solution to someone's problem today. I am divinely guided, highly favored, and fully equipped. Every door I need is opening in my favor. There's no lack in my life, only learning and leverage. Say it with authority, even if your current circumstances seem to disagree. Because success doesn't begin when things change around you. It begins when things shift within you, and your words are the ignition switch. Don't just speak life when you feel good. Speak life especially when you don't. Speak life when you're tired. Speak life when the money is low. Speak life when nobody's watching and the progress feels invisible. Because the discipline of speaking life in dry seasons is what prepares you to handle overflow when it comes. You're not speaking what is, you're speaking what's coming. And if you can speak it faithfully, you'll see it faithfully. Many people sabotage their future because their vocabulary is full of fear, lack, and limitation. They wonder why they never rise above the storm. It's because they keep speaking the storm. You can't declare defeat all day and expect to live in victory. Your words are the steering wheel of your life. If your life keeps turning in circles, maybe it's time to change the words you're using to drive it. When you talk to yourself, you're training yourself. Every declaration is either making you braver or breaking you down. So be intentional with your self-talk. Be aggressive with your affirmations. Be consistent with your declarations. Don't say what's convenient. Say what's constructive. Don't echo your situation. Announce your intention. The world may label you one way, but the words you speak can override every label, every lie, and every. Make it a practice. Stand in the mirror if you have to. Look yourself in the eye and remind yourself who you are and where you're going. Don't leave your identity up to chance or to other people's opinions. You define it, you declare it, and you defend it with your words every single day. You are not what happened to you. You are what you decide to become. And that decision is made with your mouth long before it ever shows up in your life. There's a frequency that words carry, and when you speak with conviction, the universe, the atmosphere, and even your own subconscious begin to respond. Mountains don't move because you complain. They move because you command. The version of you that you're becoming is waiting on your voice. Speak like it's already yours. Speak like heaven is backing every syllable. Speak life. Because what you don't speak, you delay. Most people stumble through their days wondering why nothing changes, why success feels like a mystery locked behind some secret door. The truth is, it's not mystery, it's mismanagement. Success is never accidental. It's always the result of precise, intentional planning. If your life feels chaotic, it's because your planning is casual, and casual planning always produces casualties, wasted time, missed opportunities, and unrealized potential. When you plan with precision, you start treating your time like the asset it truly is. Every second you waste is a seed you didn't plant. People say time is money, but that's not accurate. Time is more valuable than money. You can always make more money, but once time is gone, it's gone forever. That's why vague schedules and unclear goals are enemies of greatness. You don't drift into destiny, you decide it. You design it, you schedule it with surgical accuracy. Before the day begins, the blueprint must be written. Not just a to-do list, but a why-do list. Every task you plan must be connected to your bigger purpose. That's how you ensure movement isn't just busy, but fruitful. There's a difference between motion and momentum. One burns energy, the other builds empires. When you plan your day with intention, your actions become strategic attacks on mediocrity. The world will always demand your attention, but planning with precision is how you protect your focus. You don't owe everyone access to your time just because they asked for it. Every yes to a distraction is a no to your destiny. That's why your schedule isn't just a calendar, it's a contract. And if you don't treat it with respect, no one else will either. Planning teaches you how to protect your peace and enforce your priorities. Every night before you sleep, you should be thinking ahead, not just reacting to what happened. The average person reflects at the end of the day with regret or fatigue, but a leader prepares for tomorrow with expectation. You write down the 3 most important moves. You review your commitments. You organize your tools, your thoughts, and even your energy in advance. Because success doesn't show up for those who wait, it shows up for those who prepare. The clearer your plan, the more confident your actions. Uncertainty doesn't come from lack of talent, it comes from lack of direction. When you don't know what step to take next, it's usually because you never mapped the route. Don't just plan the day, plan the mindset you need to carry into the day. If you need to be bold, plan boldness. If you need to be patient, plan patience. Internal states must be scheduled too. People who win consistently in life operate from a playbook, not from emotion. They don't wake up and ask, what do I feel like doing? They ask, what is required of me today to create the result I want tomorrow? Planning with precision eliminates negotiation with laziness. You don't give yourself the option to drift. You've already set the course. This is how self-discipline becomes natural. Through scheduled, non-negotiable commitments. There is power in writing things down. A plan in your head is just a hope. But when it's written, it becomes a contract with your future. Seeing your plan on paper forces your mind to commit to it. It gives your thoughts structure, your hours order, and your actions rhythm. The act of writing it is a form of leadership. It's how you lead yourself before you try to lead others. A precise plan multiplies your efficiency because you already know where your energy belongs. Planning also exposes the unnecessary. It reveals the fluff you've been calling work. Most people aren't overworked, they're overwhelmed with things that don't matter. When you plan with precision, you start pruning your day. You remove what doesn't serve the mission. You stop being busy for applause and start being productive for results. The more specific your plan, the less likely you are to be hijacked by other people's chaos. Momentum is born out of alignment, and alignment only happens when your time, energy, and focus are pointed in the same direction. That's what planning with precision does. It points everything inside you toward a singular goal. Your calendar becomes your compass, and your schedule becomes sacred ground. It is where vision meets execution, where dreams stop floating and start forming. Planning isn't paperwork, it's power. The environment is not neutral. It is either nourishing your growth or poisoning your potential. The people you talk to, the places you spend your time, the voices you allow into your ears, these are not passive influences. They are active forces shaping the trajectory of your life. If you want to change your outcomes, you must first change your atmosphere. Nothing extraordinary grows in a toxic climate, no matter how gifted the seed is. We've been taught to believe that as long as we're strong enough, we can rise above any environment. But strength isn't always the issue. Sensitivity is. High performers are sensitive to atmosphere because they understand that greatness doesn't just come from within. It must also be supported from around. If you place a lion in a zoo, it still has the heart of a king, but its roar gets weaker every day, not because it lost its nature, but because it lost its environment. There are conversations that crush creativity. There are jokes that kill confidence. There are friends who are really undercover anchors keeping you from ever lifting off. And here's the truth most don't want to admit. Loyalty to the wrong people will delay your destiny longer than any external obstacle. You can't keep walking with people who don't see where you're going and expect to arrive at your next level on time. Your energy is currency, and your environment determines how it gets spent. Some rooms inspire you to dream bigger, others drain you until you start shrinking your goals to match their comfort zone. You were never designed to survive in environments of compromise and complaining. You were designed to thrive in spaces of faith, vision, and elevation. So if the air around you is stale, open a new window or walk out the door entirely. It's not just people who affect your environment, it's patterns. The clutter on your desk, the notifications on your phone, the noise in your schedule, these all play a role in your mental clarity. Protecting your environment means organizing your physical space to support your mental space. You can't produce excellence in a space full of chaos. Every distraction you tolerate is an enemy you've invited into your focus. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is create distance. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you've decided to be different. If you're serious about success, you must be selective with proximity. You can love someone deeply and still recognize they don't belong in your inner circle, because your circle determines your standard, and your standard determines your future. What most people call support is really sabotage in disguise. When someone constantly reminds you to play it safe, to slow down, to be realistic, they're not protecting you. They're projecting their own limitations onto your future. The wrong environment won't just delay your progress, it'll have you question your own promise. That's why you need to be around people who don't flinch when you talk about big dreams, people who challenge you, celebrate you, and correct you in love. You have to guard your gates, your eye gate, your ear gate, your heart gate. What you consume becomes what you create. If you constantly feed on fear, gossip, negativity, or shallow entertainment, don't be surprised when your output reflects that same energy. A protected environment is one that filters what's allowed in. You have to build boundaries, not walls, but firm filters that decide what feeds your soul and what fractures it. Every season of elevation requires a new level of environmental discipline. You can't build a skyscraper on a shaky foundation, and you can't reach new heights while staying rooted in old systems and stale surroundings. Sometimes your next level requires you to leave the familiar, not because it's bad, but because it's not enough. Comfort is the greatest killer of momentum, and environments built for comfort rarely produce champions. The moment you take control of your environment is the moment you take control of your future. You don't need permission to protect your space. You don't owe access to everyone just because they knew you before you grew. This is about stewardship, about surrounding yourself with people, energy, and habits that provoke growth. Not only do you need to protect your environment, you need to curate it like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Too many people are waiting for a perfect moment that doesn't exist. They're sitting on the sidelines of their own destiny, hoping that clarity, confidence, or resources will somehow appear before they take the first step. But the truth is, results don't come to those who wait, they come to those who work. Work activates the process. Waiting without working is procrastination dressed up in patience. You don't get to see progress until you put in the practice. People will talk about trusting the process, but most of them haven't even started the process. You can't trust what you haven't triggered. Faith without works is dead, and plans without action are just fantasies. If you want change, you have to move, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, now. Because readiness isn't a prerequisite, it's a result of action. You don't wait to be ready. You work until you are. There's a dangerous mindset floating around that says you need to feel inspired to get going. That is the mindset of amateurs. Professionals understand that you work first and let the feelings catch up. Champions don't consult their emotions before they act. They don't negotiate with laziness or wait for motivation to knock. They show up every day, with or without applause, with or without energy, with or without perfect conditions. When you work first, you shift your identity. You go from being a dreamer to being a doer. You stop being a spectator of your potential and become a participant in your purpose. The very act of working, writing the plan, building the skill, making the call starts changing how you see yourself. You begin to carry yourself differently. You become more disciplined, more focused, more dangerous to the limitations that used to hold you back. You don't need to know every step. You just need to take the next one. Action reveals what waiting never will. There are things you'll only understand after you begin. Lessons you can't learn from books. Advice you can't receive from videos. You only gain them through the grind, through the repetition, through showing up when it's boring, when it's hard, when it seems like nothing is working. That's when the real breakthroughs begin to form. Waiting puts the power in someone else's hands. It keeps you dependent on timing, on approval, on circumstances aligning. But when you work first, you shift the balance. You create momentum. And momentum attracts what you've been waiting for. Suddenly people notice, opportunities arise, resources show up, not because you sat still, but because your movement made noise. It's not about working perfectly, it's about working persistently. Progress isn't always loud or visible. Sometimes it looks like doing the same task over and over without immediate reward. But just because the harvest isn't showing doesn't mean the seed isn't growing. You water the vision through your work, not occasionally, not emotionally. There are two types of people, those who wait for the opportunity and those who prepare for it. And preparation looks like discipline in the dark. It looks like staying up when others sleep. It looks like sacrificing comfort to build capacity. You don't rise to the occasion, you rise to the level of your preparation. That's why working now in silence, in obscurity, matters more than most people realize. The mindset of I'll start when is the language of delay. I'll start when I have the money. I'll start when the timing is better. I'll start when I feel more confident. But that kind of thinking keeps you trapped in circles. Real progress is made by those who don't wait for ideal conditions. They build while it's raining. They sow in the winter. They train while others rest. They understand that working now is what creates the moment others spend their lives waiting for. Work is the builder of belief. When you put your hands to something, when you apply pressure, consistency, and commitment, you start proving to yourself that you're capable. And that internal evidence is stronger than any external validation. You don't work because it's easy. You work because your future demands it. Because your purpose is too valuable to gamble on chance or emotion. Because building greatness is never accidental, it's always intentional. Faith is not something that simply happens to you. It's something you build, something you feed, something you strengthen every single day. Just like your body grows weaker without food, your faith grows weaker without nourishment. You can't expect to walk in power if all you've been doing is feeding your fear. Whatever you feed will grow. If you feed your doubt will dominate. But if you feed your faith will fight for you in the battles your strength can't win. Faith isn't just about believing when things look good. It's about believing when there's no visible reason to. It's about choosing to speak victory while surrounded by evidence of defeat. But that kind of unshakable belief doesn't come from a casual relationship with truth. It comes from constant feeding. It comes from hearing, repeating, declaring, and meditating on words that align with your purpose, not your problem. Because what enters your mind regularly becomes the soundtrack of your spirit. Most people want strong faith without strong discipline. They want breakthrough without input. But faith grows in proportion to your investment in it. If the only time you focus on faith is when you're desperate, don't be surprised when your faith feels flimsy. You have to treat your faith like a fire. Tend to it constantly. Add to it daily. Protect it fiercely. Because life will test it. Pressure will expose it. And circumstances will try to weaken it. Your faith is not just for miracles. It's for movement. Faith without works is dead, but works without faith is empty. When you feed your faith, you're not just building belief, you're building boldness. You're empowering yourself to act even when you don't have all the answers. You're reminding your soul that the outcome isn't your responsibility, the obedience is. Feeding your faith keeps your feet moving when your feelings tell you to quit. Faith comes by hearing, but it matters what you hear. If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, criticism, and fear-based messaging, your faith will be malnourished. You have to become intentional about your inputs. Turn off the noise that drains you. Cut off conversations that cause you to question who you are. Replace them with words that stir your spirit. Fill your atmosphere with truth, power, and reminders of what's possible. Feeding your faith also means starving your doubt. You can't do both. You can't build faith and entertain fear at the same time. Doubt will always feel more logical. Fear will always feel more familiar. But faith is not based on feeling. It's based on truth. And truth doesn't change just because your emotions do. That's why you must feed your faith until it becomes louder than your fear. Until it becomes your first reaction, not your last resort. Every time you read something that strengthens your spirit, every time you declare something that reminds you who you are, every time you act on something, even when you're afraid, you are feeding your faith. And the more you feed it, the more it becomes your default. Eventually, faith becomes the lens through which you see life. You stop asking, what if? It doesn't. Feeding your faith is not a one-time event, it's a lifestyle. Just like you don't eat once a week and expect to be full every day, you can't feed your faith occasionally and expect it to sustain you in every storm. You must learn to keep your soul full. That means having a routine of spiritual strength building. Whether it's through scripture, prayer, worship, affirmations, or teaching, you stay connected to the source that keeps you anchored. Your external world is a reflection of your internal world. When faith is high, fear has no room to speak. When faith is strong, discouragement has to shrink. That's why the enemy of your potential doesn't just attack your finances, your relationships, or your health. He attacks your faith. Because if he can shake that, everything else begins to unravel. But when you feed your faith consistently, you fortify your foundation. You become unshakable, unmovable, and unstoppable. The level of your life will never rise above the level of your faith. That's why your faith must be protected and prioritized. You don't wait until the storm to start feeding it. You build it daily, quietly, intentionally, even when it doesn't feel necessary, because the day will come when your faith will be the only thing standing between you and collapse. And when that day comes, you'll discover that the faith you fed in private is the faith that fights for you in public. Success doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing what works. And the only way to know what's working is to consistently evaluate and adjust. Most people stay stuck not because they're not moving, but because they're moving in the wrong direction and too prideful or too distracted to stop and check. They keep repeating old patterns, expecting new results, when what they really need is a pause to assess and realign. Progress isn't powered by effort alone, it's powered by wisdom. And wisdom comes from reflection. Evaluation is the discipline of the focused. It requires humility to look at your habits, your results, and your systems and ask, is this producing fruit? Because it's possible to be busy and ineffective, consistent and unproductive, hardworking and still off course. And when you don't evaluate, you don't grow. You just age. Time doesn't bring transformation, truth does. And evaluation is how you confront the truth about your effort, your direction, and your mindset. You don't get better by accident. You get better by intention. That means regularly stepping back from the grind to look at the game plan. Is your schedule serving your goals? Are your actions aligned with your values? Are your words pushing your vision forward or pulling it back? These aren't questions for the weak. They're the habits of the wise. The people who achieve the most aren't always the most talented. They're the most aware. They don't lie to themselves. They study themselves. Evaluation without adjustment is self-deception. It's not enough to know what's wrong. You've got to shift. Adjusting is the muscle of momentum. It's where maturity lives. When something isn't working, you pivot. You don't pout. You don't make excuses. You don't blame. You take responsibility and re-strategize. Because success is less about perfection and more about correction. Every champion had to change something on the journey. The difference is they were willing to do it. Most people fear change because they associate it with failure, but not adjusting is the real failure. The world is moving fast, and if you stay the same, you fall behind. Growth means evolving. It means learning, applying, tweaking, and refining over and over again. You don't find the perfect system once. You develop it over time by staying honest about what's working and courageous enough to drop what's not. What brought you here might not take you there. Evaluating your actions also reveals hidden drains. You may be investing time into things that look productive but don't actually produce. You might be stuck in routines that feel familiar but no longer serve you. When you evaluate, you find the leaks. When you adjust, you seal them. That's how you stop wasting energy on the unnecessary and start focusing only on what moves the needle. Not everything deserves your attention. Some things just deserve to be deleted. It's also important to evaluate your mindset. Are you thinking from a place of power or a place of pressure? Are you making decisions based on vision or on fear? The way you think determines the way you move, and the way you move determines the results you experience. Sometimes you don't need to change your work, you need to change your why. A small shift in purpose can lead to a massive shift in productivity. Your relationships need evaluation too. Who around you is sharpening you and who is silently sabotaging your growth? Who challenges your excuses and who cobbles your comfort zone? Relationships can be rocket fuel or dead weight, and it takes real honesty to adjust the ones that are no longer aligned with your assignment. Elevation requires discernment, and sometimes the adjustment is not just in what you do, but in who you do it with. Evaluation also creates clarity. When you know what's working, you gain confidence. You stop second guessing. You stop wasting time chasing everything, hoping something sticks. Clarity reduces anxiety because it allows you to focus your firepower. Adjustments based on that clarity help you refine your lane, own your space, and scale your impact. The clearer the vision, the clearer the execution. And clarity comes from consistent, honest evaluation. You cannot build anything lasting without the discipline to check and change. Life isn't static. Things evolve, markets shift, people grow, and so must you. Regular evaluation doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means you're serious about your mission. It means you care too much about your calling to be casual with your patterns. It means you are willing to do the uncomfortable work of correction so you can keep moving toward the undeniable results that come with aligned